हेलो 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 दोस्तों। हाउ आर यू? सो वेलकम बैक टू द चैनल। हम लोग आज से 10 दिन तक एक नया सीरीज शुरू कर रहे हैं। इट्स कॉल्ड लर्न विथ मी। लर्न विथ मी, स्टडी विथ मी, वट एवर इट इज। एंड जहाँ हम लोग इन डेप्थ जो इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक्स हैं, इंटरेस्टिंग सब्जेक्ट्स हैं, उनको पढ़ेंगे। मैं पढ़ूंगा, लेक्चर्स देखेंगे साथ में, और आप मेरे साथ पढ़ सकते हैं। दीज आर जस्ट टॉपिक्स दैट इंटरेस्ट मी, है ना। और अगर आपने अभी मेरा बैकग्राउंड देख लिया होगा तो या दिस इज माय रूम एंड नथिंग फैंसी बट या ऑल्सो ओके। सो जस्ट लेट अस जंप राइट इन। अभी जो वीडियो हमारे पास है, दिस इज अ 10 लेक्चर्स, 10 यू नो लेक्चर सीरीज ऑफ psychoanalysis and by Dr. Salman Akhtar. He taught, he practices in Jefferson College, USA, and he did his MD from PGI Chandigarh, which is a medical institute, and he gave a talk there. Since it is a free world, and I have asked for you know watching those videos, they can as well react on it, right? So that's what I have thought, and let's do it. So here it is. If you can see, I'll adjust my positions here and there. So it says Primer to Psychoanalysis Course Talk 1, Fundamentals of Psychoanalysis by Professor Salman Akhtar. It's a 1 hour long lecture. I'll be watching it, making notes of it. If you want to study, you should make notes of it. We will discuss these ideas in between the videos, and yeah, let's start. Let me just take my copy real quick, and then we will start. Okay. So I wish to study in a full blown mode, just like I'm taking a class. Assume that you are a medical student and you are going to learn about psychiatry, psychotherapy, psychoanalysis. I know you are interested. I know you have a curiosity for all these topics. Here is a chance that you can also learn the basics that the specialists know, right? The the specialists of the field know. आप भी सीखिए मेरे साथ, मैं भी सीखता हूँ। शुरू करते हैं, ठीक है? लेट्स गो।
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much, Dev Saab, for having me here. And as you said, I am here because I am from here. And this is where I learned ABC of psychiatry and even of psychoanalysis. Um, and I joined PGI, Department of Psychiatry, in January of 1969. And I was there till April of 1973. So I did a residency there. Then I was employed for 2, 3 months and such. And in retrospect, obviously, everything looks good. And every experience becomes rosy by nostalgia. But the fact is, I had some very, very good times, also some bad times. But those bad times were never because of anybody else. Those bad times were because of me, because I was a little, difficult to handle. Difficult to handle. So now, what I why did I choose and why did I approach your chairman, Dr. Basu, to sort of forced him to invite me to do this? Is because I am often invited in India to teach psychotherapy or something, and many times sponsored by drug companies and such. And often I hear from the audience two things. One, an enormous hunger an enormous desire to know more and learn more about psychodynamics. Because as a country becomes more affluent, the definition of what is treatable enlarges. As a country becomes poor, the definition of what is mentally treatable diminishes. India is on the rise. And as a result, what is happening is that the demand for psychotherapy is increasing. Also, the demand for psychotherapy increases when children are raised in smaller units of mommy, daddy, and child, which leaves the child alone more often, which leaves the child with more time on its hands, which leaves the child thinking more often, as against children who are raised in large extended families with chacha, chachi, mama, mami, nana, nani, dada, dadi, and 10 cousins and such, and playing and running around and climbing guava trees and such. Those children are more happy, but they have less self reflection. And children raised in smaller units, nuclear families, in apartment buildings, latchkey kids with lesser amount of cousins and aunts and lesser number of siblings are forced to think more and reflect more. That is the subject for psychoanalysis. That's a person who would then later be interested in mental matters, suitable to become an analyst, suitable to seek analysis. So I think the socio-cultural and economic situations of India and the rural to urban migration, the death of nuclear family and the near demise of extended family, I think is creating the so-called psychoanalytic subject. Also, affluence, I think, produces a greater opportunity and greater window for thoughts about mind. If somebody is hungry and has no food to eat, then what you dreamt last night doesn't matter. What matters is, where the food is coming from. So, because India is becoming now
सो समझ रहे हैं आप क्या कह रहे हो? तो मैंने 3 पॉइंट्स नोट किए हैं अभी तक कि जो मुझे इंपॉर्टेंट लगे कि एज अ कंट्री ग्रोज रिचर, the definition of what is treatable and what is curable increases, be it mental, be it physical. And since the families get smaller, nuclear families, self reflecting children increase. Children with more alone time increase, and these people are subject of psychoanalysis. They can become analysts, they can become the analysant, वो उनको ट्रीट किया जाएगा और वो अपने आप को समझ सकते हैं, वो सोचने का उनके पास समय है. वेयर एज ज्वाइंट फैमिलीज के बच्चे, उनके पास अलोन टाइम नहीं है, राइट? तो वो सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्टिव नहीं होंगे, वो हैप्पी हो सकते हैं, वो सेल्फ रिफ्लेक्टिव नहीं होंगे, राइट? तो ये दूसरा पॉइंट मैंने नोट किया. So this too makes India a very suitable country right now for psychoanalysis to thrive. That's what the third line is. The socio-cultural context of India, socio-economic context of India is creating the psychoanalytic subject. ठीक है, ये 3 बातें important थी. Let's go.
more affluent, still not as affluent as some other countries, but certainly far more affluent than it used to be. That and far more nuclear families and far more urban. That the need for psychotherapy and the psychological problems is increasing, and the treatability definition is enhancing. So when I go and teach in India, which I do at least once a year, in different places, I've taught in Bombay, in New Delhi, in Calcutta, in Chennai, in Hyderabad recently. Just a few months ago, in February, I was there in Hyderabad for 2, 3 days, and in Bangalore, in Nagpur, bunch of places. And 100, 200 people come, uh, and you find two things. You find an enormous hunger, I find an enormous hunger for knowledge and profound desire to understand uh, non psychotic outpatient kind of problems. Uh, and simultaneously and tragically, an absence of knowledge. and an absence of proper study in those areas. So that it creates a kind of restlessness, impotence, hunger, irritability, suspicion, skepticism, etc. A mixture of feelings among young psychiatrists in India. That's what I found. Psychologists are somewhat better off. They have more opportunity to read more of this. And I think we do need a greater liaison between psychology and psychiatry than we have had. Although, of course, when I was training in PGI Chandigarh in 1969, 70, 71, 72, two of my gurus were Dr. S.K. Verma, who recently passed away, and Dr. Dwarka Prasad, to whom I'm very grateful. So, born from those experiences in India, I decided that at least the least I can do. I mean, you can't fix this world. Please remember, you can't fix this world. There's a lot of problems in this world, and you can't fix it. Just try to fix yourself, and try to fix maybe five, six other people. I think if I'm dying and I have a serious conviction that I've helped 12 human beings, really, really, really helped, I think I can die a peaceful man. You know, that's all one can do. So I decided that the least I could do was to offer a brief course on psychoanalysis. Uh, Not that it'll end it all, not that it'll clear up everything, not that it'll prepare you to be a good psychotherapist. No, but it'll wake you up a little bit, hopefully, and it'll make you think, and it'll make you, I'll show you what further to read and how to go. So this is what
We are grateful, sir. I mean, uh, for my background, I'm just a, done a bachelor's in physics, and I'm just I have just a curiosity to learn these things, and probably 10, 15, 20 people more who will listen to me and watch these reaction videos, or maybe get inspired and go to the main channel of PGI Chandigarh and watch the whole video. And yeah, so this is not, we are not aiming here to become psychotherapists or psychiatrists. We are just curious people who want to know what is it, right? We are fascinated by names like Freud, or Jung, or what is repression. Yeah, so go on by all means. Thank you so much. We are grateful, sir. Dr. Akhtar.
the idea is. I'm not here to convince you of anything and argue about anything, nor should you be here to argue with me and prove me wrong or right or something. We are here in an atmosphere of academic mutuality. I'll tell you what I have studied in last 50, 60 years, 50 years, and share with you what I understand about human beings, about patients, especially I'm talking mostly of non-psychotic patients, you know, who come in outpatient clinics with depression, anxiety, etc., etc. So that is what my idea is. My goal of my purpose is that if after these 10 sessions you feel really, really, not bullshit, really you feel that you now understand this patient a little bit better. And since you can understand this patient a little bit better, you can help the patient a little bit better. Then this course would have been successful. If not, then it's all talk. Then you should forget all about it. That is the parameter from which you should judge what I'm going to say. Okay. I'll talk
Let me
with
come.
relatively
Just
less
wait.
technical terms, which must not delude you into thinking that I'm ignorant. Simply because I want to talk simply, and no good teaching happens in an atmosphere of intimidation. Good teaching happens in an atmosphere of mutual respect and cordiality. So I'll talk simple things, but that simple things, in PGI for the first time in India, they've sub for the first time in India, RAM.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did I fuck it up? I did not, right? It's all good. Yeah, it's all good. I did not fuck it up.
Ramp I saw in PGI. You know, there's a ramp that you go
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
in near the outpatient clinic, it comes out someplace near there. So I'd never seen a ramp in my life. I said, "Wow, what is this?" They call a ramp. I said, "Wow." So now, uh, uh, you know, that is what how my teaching would be, like a ramp, not like an staircase and not like an elevator. We'll go slowly, 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 and the material will become deeper, deeper, and deeper. Okay, let us start with some very, very basic fundamentals. So I have now four basic ideas to convey to you. First idea. First idea I want to tell you is that psychoanalysis, the word psychoanalysis, is used in two different ways. Just the word medicine is used in two different ways. Medicine means profession of medicine. In fact, medicine word is used in three different ways. Profession of medicine, all of us are in medicine. Second, internal medicine, a specific specialty, internal medicine, you know, which is kind of a cute and hilarious phrase because there's no such thing as external medicine. So otherwise there should have been another specialty called external medicine. It just occurred to me. So medicine as a profession, medicine as a specialty, and medicine as something we pop in our mouth, right? So the word medicine is used in many ways. Same way the word psychoanalysis is used in two different ways. In a way of a whole set of theories and assumptions and hypotheses, psychoanalysis, and a specific form of psychotherapy called psychoanalysis. So that's the first thing should become clear to you. The word psychoanalysis is used in two different ways. One, referring to an entire body of a corpus of knowledge, theory, speculations, hypotheses, judgments, etc., etc. One. And second, as a specific type of psychotherapy. That's one thing. Second, that this was started by Dr. Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was born in Czechoslovakia, now Czech Republic, uh, and in 1856. Uh, and then when he was 3 years old or three and a half, he moved to Leipzig, Germany. And then when he was four and a half, he moved to Vienna, Austria, which is where he lived from four and a half till 81. And at 81, because of what was going on in politically and anti-Semitic situation in Vienna and Germany, and the Holocaust just coming around the corner, he left. He was, taken out by good friends, um, uh, and then he lived the last nearly 2 years, just a little short of 2 years, in London, which is where he died. Now, Freud has been idealized, worshipped by some people, and demonized and devalued by others. The fact is that he wrote some 24 volumes of papers, which is like, let's say, 300, 400 pages each, so about 7,000 pages, 8,000 pages, which is a bunch of writing. And those writings are in many categories, so that we should not say Freud this. No, there are four kinds of Freud, four kinds of writings. This, those of you who are serious, some of you may not be serious. That's also okay. You know, it's okay. But those of you who are serious should write it down. There are four different Freuds. One, meta-psychological. I'll explain. Meta-psychological. Two, developmental. Three, clinical. Four, cultural. Cultural. These are four different sets of his writings. The fact is, they are not identified as such. This is my classification. This is how I have understood in reading it. The first one, metapsychological, and our next session is all on metapsychology. So today I'll not go in detail, just define these four things so you understand. Metapsychological means the psychology of the psychology. Psychology is Dr. Basu invites me for dinner, and I find out that he has a dog, and I'm afraid of dogs. So I say, Dr. Basu, I'm not feeling very well today. My wife is not well. I can't come or something. Okay. So my not showing up at his dinner at his house was because of a mental reason, right? I didn't walk or drive or go to his house, eat his food. Because of what? Because in my mind, I'm terrified of dogs. That's called psychology. But psychoanalysis is not satisfied with this. We want to know the psychology of the psychology. Why? How come? What does it mean? How does it begin? Is it really a dog I'm afraid of? And so on and so forth. So that piece is called metapsychology, which we will go in great detail next time. One, metapsychology. Second, development. And that is, how does a baby who's born completely, you know, ignorant and misattuned or unattuned, misattuned is wrong, unattuned to this world, to the realities of this world, how does this baby become a chairman of Department of Psychiatry? A lot of must have gone on. A lot has to go on for this baby who was born, I think, maybe 50 years ago. You know, that and this is an amazing person. That baby is this person. How? What happened? How does this happen? You know, when you were 1 day old, you didn't know shit. When you were 1 month old, you didn't know shit. When you were 1 year old, you didn't know shit. You began to think you knew something by the time you were 2 years old. You didn't know anything. And now you're MD and you're MBBS and you're learning psychiatry. How? How did that baby becomes like this, an adult? That piece. Second piece. First piece, metapsychological Freud. Second, developmental Freud.
Developmental Freud.
Third, clinical Freud. What is psychopathology? How do we know its pathology? What are the kinds of psychopathologies? What is the nature? What are the connections between different kinds of psychopathologies? How do we know which psychopathology is more severe than the other? And so on and so forth. And how to treat it.
Basically, treatment. Basically, what is treatable? What can be called a mental disease? Psychopathology वही हुआ ना कि पैथोलॉजी मतलब आप किसी चीज को कह रहे हो कि ये बीमारी है, तो आप कह कैसे रहे हो, इसको आप साधारण कंडीशन से अलग कैसे कह रहे हो, why it is a dis-ease disease, right? This is clinical, right? Clinical Freud.
So that is clinical Freud. And the fourth one is cultural speculations of Freud about religion, about war, about creativity, about civilization, about transience of human life, and so on and so forth. These are four different kinds of contributions of Freud contained in those 24 volumes. If I were the chairman of Freud, and Freud was like you guys, young residents, and I had to give him grades. And Freud is lucky that this didn't happen. But if I were going to give him grades, I would have given him A plus in metapsychology, B minus, or maybe C in development, B in clinical stuff, and B minus in culture. The best piece of Freud is in metapsychology. How does the mind work? All others are problematic. Okay, so that is one thing I've told you. Of the four things I was going to tell you, and then
I have a question. I don't know if I will ever get this answer. Lekin, how can someone judge Freud? Like, if you are a psychoanalyst, you have started your career by reading Freud, right? And now you're saying that you can judge Freud. I mean, okay, but what are the parameters by which you are judging Freud? Maybe in the next half we will get the answer.
I'll stop, and then we'll talk. First thing I told you today is psychoanalysis was formed started by Freud. He was born in 1856 in Czechoslovakia, but mostly grew up and lived and practiced in Vienna, in Austria, which is where his house still is, 19 Bagaza. And he became a doctor, then neurologist, then psychiatrist, then psychoanalyst in Vienna. And he lived till 81 when he left and died at 83 and a half, something like that, in 1939, September. You know, in fact, wow, today's 20th. He
Yeah.
died on 24th September. So
Yes.
4 days from now is his death anniversary. So, and his contributions are in four categories. One, metapsychological. Second, developmental. Third, clinical. And fourth, cultural. In my opinion, which is, people say in my humble opinion, it's not very humble, frankly. I do not claim humility. You know, in my opinion, the best piece is the first piece, metapsychological piece. All others have some difficulty and have been replaced or changed or modified. This whole package is fact number one that I want you to remember and know. Fact number two, there are many weaknesses in Freud's work. The following five weaknesses stand out. Number one, that it is too body oriented in the sense that all motivation, all desire, all fantasy, all impulse, all mental activity is being started by the demands of the body. It's not true. I don't think we believe that anymore. Even psychoanalysts don't believe. There are all sorts of other motivations. So that's one thing, that the body centrality. You know, like one place he writes a sentence. Look at this sentence. Anatomy is destiny. Now think about this sentence. Anatomy is destiny. Not really. I mean, let's suppose I was born without an arm, but my mother loved me, and my mother really adored me and loved me, and my father loved me, and my older brother was extremely helpful to me. I would grow up to have no shame about not having an arm. Those of you
True,
who
true,
see
true, true.
Western movies and are familiar with Western movies, but maybe there are models like this in India. There's a film actor here called Peter Dinklage,
Yeah,
who's 4 feet tall. Peter Dinklage, Dinklage. He's 4 feet tall. He's a superb actor
Peter
and
Dinklage is
has been nominated for Emmy, has been nominated for Oscar.
Jon
He's
Snow.
4 feet tall. He's 50 years old. Fabulous actor, lived with a dignified. Obviously, it's clear that his mother must have loved
Yeah, yeah, he's talking about Jon
him.
Snow.
Anatomy is not destiny. It is how the anatomy is treated by the family that creates destiny. So Freud was that way wrong. So too much anatomy based, too much body based. And that was, I think, because he was trying to unshackle himself from hard medicine. Even I, when I became an attending, I used to wear white coat. I used to wear white coat for about 2 years or maybe three, because I was like, still wanted to feel like a doctor. That somehow I was not convinced that I was become a psychiatrist, so I'm not really a doctor. And then I moved to psychoanalysis and I gave up white coat, I gave up all diplomas on my wall and blah, blah. So, and now I sit like this and just listen. I don't think I've written a prescription. I wrote a prescription of Inderol to somebody after about 15 years. And that too, I asked a friend, what is Inderol? How much can one give? Should one give? I said, I know nothing about medication. Please don't ask me any such questions. You have to lose knowledge to consolidate knowledge in another area. So Freud was also, I think, because he was a kind of a pioneer, so he was trying to unshackle himself from the physical medicine, but he couldn't fully. So a bunch of his metaphors, bunch of his, like projection is a spitting, introjection is eating, denial is turning, baby turning the neck away. Ah, that's bullshit. So this kind of too much body anchor in theory, I don't think was needed. Mind has its own logic, and it doesn't have to be explained on the basis of the body. Second thing problem was that there's too much energetic and hydraulic metaphors, and that was based upon
Is it also because Freud had an influence of Marx and materialism, and how mind is just a manifestation of body only? I think so. I think this is an influence of Marxist philosophy. This is an influence of materialist philosophy. Just guessing. I don't know.
his days, his admiration of Newton and early thermodynamics, that if you have this more, then this becomes less. If you have this more, this becomes this. If these two can be combined, then they become more. If they can be retracted, these kind of mechanical and hydraulic stuff is not really that applicable. Energetic models and such. Two. Thirdly, the whole theory, especially of development, is too Eurocentric, not of metapsychology. Metapsychology is the only piece that is everlasting, ubiquitous, 100% applicable to all the world. About 10 years ago, I was asked by Goethe Institute in Frankfurt. They were bringing out a book on the Islamic world, uh, 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 Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, etc. And they asked me, what does psychoanalysis has to do with that? So I wrote a piece in which I said that this is the only thing that's applicable, metapsychology. How does the mind work? And we'll talk next time in more detail about it. But the developmental model that he came up with, this happens, then this happens, then this happens. I think that's too Eurocentric. That is too much European and too much white people. White people seeing white people, patients white, the children white, doctor white, everybody. Patient Freud never saw a patient who was African American. Patient Freud never saw a patient from India. Although he met, by the way, he met Tagore, and he made a very interesting comment about Tagore. Unbelievable, funny comment for an atheist. He writes a letter the day after he met Tagore. There's an encounter between him and Tagore in a hotel in Vienna. Tagore was older than Freud, so Freud paid respect and went to see him in the hotel with his wife and with his daughter. And when he knocked on the door, somebody was there. There's a woman whose name I will get to name someday. A Bengali woman, young woman who was traveling with Tagore, one of his acolytes, friends, or who knows what else, but writing about him, etc., etc. And she opened the door, and Freud entered. Then they sat and talked for about an hour or so. Later, 2 days later, he's writing to a friend, Freud, in a letter. He says, "I went to see this great Indian poet by the name of Tagore." And then he says the funniest thing. He says he was sprawled on the bed, a tall man with a flowing beard, and he was sprawled on the bed. When I saw him, I thought that's exactly what God would look like, except perhaps God would be about 10,000 years older than Tagore. So, I mean, that was his kind of wry sense of humor. But he never treated an Indian patient. He never treated a Japanese patient. He never treated a Chinese patient. He never treated a patient from New Zealand, right?
Do you know another further comment that Sigmund Freud does about Indians after meeting Tagore was that मेरा कोटा हो गया है इस महीने के लिए इंडियन से मिलने का अब ज्यादा इंडियन से मुझे मिलना नहीं है so there's a very duality of Freud also. Freud is not, I don't know, very fond of Indians in general.
So his knowledge base was Eurocentric, and therefore the developmental theory became Eurocentric. And that's a weakness. Three, fourth weakness is too phallocentric, is too much from a male perspective, and therefore many times very wrong about women, very wrong. So, and finally, that he was torn within himself, on one hand being a loyal Darwinian, and on the other hand being having a libertarian spirit, so that he fluctuates in his writings and his orientation and his value system. For example, take the example of homosexuality. He can say homosexuality is sick and diseased, and he can also firmly advocate it's perfectly fine, it's perfectly normal, it's consonant with mental health. So he goes this way, because internally he was conflicted about being a medical Darwinian on one side and a psychologist. He was a psychiatrist, but mentally psychologist, libertarian on the other side. These are the problems in Freud: Eurocentrism, phallocentrism, too much anchor in the body, too much energetic and hydraulic models, and conflict between Darwinianism and libertarianism. This is the weak side which pervades Freud's work. Then, so I told you two facts now. Fact number one, psychoanalysis was started by Freud. Freud was born in Czechoslovakia, moved to Vienna by four, lived in Vienna, practiced psych.
So you are saying कि फ्रॉइड पे न्यूटन और न्यूटोनियन फिजिक्स का असर था, बट मार्क्स का असर नहीं था. आई मीन, आई डोंट नो, मटेरियलिज्म का असर भी दिखता है फ्रॉइड पे. आई डोंट नो, देखते हैं मतलब his analysis.
Till 81, then moved to London and died there about 2 years later. Psychoanalysis was born in Vienna, Austria. Freud's contributions, spread over 24 volumes of collected works, are in four categories. Although the collected works don't say that, and nobody says that. This is my organization. In metapsychology, in development, in clinical work, and in cultural speculation. In my opinion, metapsychology is a solid piece of work, which is universally applicable. The development is very Eurocentric and phallocentric, and therefore wrong and limited. The clinical work is okay, and because you're seeing certain kinds of patients and not other kinds of patients, and certain groups of patients. Because when a patient comes to us, the patient brings us their pathos, but they also bring their ethos. As a result, if you're only seeing white people, seeing white patients in a particular language and a particular socioeconomic status, they're going to only have a certain kind of theory.
I have an example of this. तो आई हर्ड इट फ्रॉम डॉक्टर सलमान ओनली कि एक पेशेंट आया, उसने बोला कि मुझे शावर से निकलने का मन ही नहीं करता, मैं सेटिस्फाई ही नहीं होता शावर से, मुझे लगता है और नहाऊं और नहाऊं और नहाऊं. सो अ वाइट मैन्स ट्रीटमेंट ऑफ दिस वुड बी कि लिव डेथ इंस्टिंक्ट, बाकी डिजायर्स कम हो गई हैं, सिर्फ एक डिजायर हावी हो गई है. It is the death instinct of all desires, death drive of all desires that is causing this. So in Western psychoanalysis, Freudian psychoanalysis, death drive is what is called toe-based drive. That's what is called, right? Uh, this is very demonized. You know, it is bad. Living drive, living instinct is good. To live, to wish to live, to have passion, to have drive. That is the line. Uh, it's about it's about power. Something, we stay hungry, we devour. So yeah. But an Indian psychoanalyst would say that maybe the death instinct of this particular desire is taking over. You are not being satisfied because the desire is not, the gratitude is not leading to the satisfaction, right? So different aspects, different clinician, different cultural context gives different pathology, hence different clinical, uh, aspect of psychoanalysis.
you know, and and then finally, cultural speculations. He wrote about religious belief and why people believe in God and why, according to him, they shouldn't and they won't one day, and about civilization, creativity, and such. So those are the four categories. That's whole piece. One fact. Second fact, that there are many weaknesses in Freud. Eurocentrism, phallocentrism, energetic models which are no longer valid and applicable, and too much body orientation, which is not the case. The mind has its own life, and and a
Split
conflictual
between
tension between Darwinianism and
them.
libertarianism, and those are the weaknesses. Now, two facts. Third fact, the strengths of Freud. Strengths are number one, that he outlined the nature of mind's operations. How does the mind function? We'll go more detail tomorrow, or next tomorrow. That's my wishfulness. You know, because now I'm in the mood of teaching. So now I want to teach tomorrow also. So I can't wait for next week. That's my problem. That's not your problem. So now, one is this outline of metapsychology, which is very good, very, very good, very, very useful, very enlightening, and it will change your mind how you listen to patients. One. Two, that he also shed light on what he called psychopathology of everyday life, such as why do we forget people's names? Why do we forget people's names? Why do we forget our umbrella or our cell phone in somebody's house? Why do we make a slip of tongue? Why do we make a slip of pen? Now, here's the story. I was 17 years old, and a friend of mine, his brother was getting married, older brother. So
Story
he said,
time.
come to the wedding. So 17, 18, the scope of getting free booze and good food, there it is. So I said, okay, of course I'll come. So we went. We went. There was a very beautiful girl there. And that girl paid no attention to me and paid no attention to my friend either. She was paying attention to somebody else. And me and my friend were obviously very upset about this and very jealous. Anyway, we came back from that wedding. 6 months passed or a year passed. One day, same friend and I were sitting at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night chatting. And we recalled this incident. And we recalled that beautiful girl's name readily. And we couldn't recall that guy's name. Now, up to here, okay, fine. You forgot that guy's name. And understandably, why you would forget that guy's name? You wanted him dead anyway. So it's okay. But the story doesn't end here. The story is that we felt somehow an internal need, both him and me, to know that name and remember that name. So we tried our best. Was his name this? Was it named Vijay? Was it named Shankar? Was it named Vinod? Was it? Now we are going on and on. And we listed hundreds of names and none of them was that name. Ultimately, there was a third friend who was at that wedding. Now there was no cell phones those days, no even public phones. And where is this happening? This is happening in Aligarh Muslim University, where I was like, in 12th grade or something.
Oh, it's an AMU.
So where to find a phone? Now it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So we took a rickshaw and we went to train station. And from the train station, there was a public phone on train station. We called this guy in Delhi and he had fallen asleep like 11:30 or something. And we asked him, what was that guy's name? He immediately said that guy's name. When he said that guy's name, we felt such enormous relief. And he was really furious at being woken up in the middle of night for this stupid question. But as a psychoanalyst, my question is not so much why we forgot the name. That's simple. Why we forgot? Because we were jealous. We wanted to erase him from our mind. Why was it that it was so important for us to know? That to me is a mystery. And I don't really know, at least not for my friend, because he may have different motivations than I. Why was it that we had to know that name? I think, I don't know. Please understand, this is how psychoanalysis works, and we'll get into it more and more. I think I'm seeing some people's faces, and I can see that most people do have a sense that the forgetting the name was based on jealousy. Okay, you
True.
know,
Right.
but why want to remember the name? That's more curious, and I don't really know why, but I have a hypothesis. I have a hypothesis that I have a wicked and mean side, like all human beings, but I also have a very good side and moral side. So as a result, I think a part of me felt guilty at the murder that took place in not remembering his name. at my killing him. And by remembering his name, I could then be absorbed. I would bring him back to life and I could be absorbed. वो है ना फिर भी वेताल विक्रमादित्य ने हटना छोड़ा और वेताल के शव को कंधे पे डाल के चल खड़ा हुआ चंदा मामा में. That was my position. I was trying. It was time. It was resurrection. That in a way, by remembering his name, I would be absorbed of the inner murder. I think that taken place. I think that was the dynamics. But who knows? We don't know. I mean, this happened some 60 years ago. But this is how, or to kill him, you had to know his name. That's also true. Yes, maybe that is the truth. That the pleasure would be greater of murdering him. Good point. Certainly, that's also possible. But it's interesting. Now, if you want to know the name, I'll be willing to tell it to you because you would never know this human being. I don't think so. But there's no point in that. That's not the point of the story. The point of the story is forgetting and remembering. Anyway, so what Freud did was, one, he gave us this universal metapsychology. Second, he also shed light on what is called psychopathology of everyday life, meaning slips of tongue, slips of pen, forgetting names, forgetting things, and such. Actually, here is an important acknowledgement. I was resident in PGI from 69 to December of 72, 3 years. 69, 70, 71, 4 years, internship, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I think it was in 71 or 72, 71 that Dr. Vijay Verma came and joined the department. And he, although was not an analyst, but he had lived in Michigan, and I think he had some personal analysis, and therefore he was familiar with psychoanalysis. And he asked me what of Freud I had read, and I had not read anything. So I was embarrassed, and I asked him, what should I read? And he said, if you have to read something, start from Psychopathology of Everyday Life. So I went to PGI library, and they didn't have it. Then I went to Punjab University library, and they had it. And I started reading, and the moment I started reading, I knew this is what I wanted.
In fact, I have read I have read Interpretation of Dreams, and I have read Psychopathology of Everyday Life by Freud. And I think Psychopathology of Everyday Life outshines Interpretation of Dreams. In my opinion, it is perfect. It's lovely. It's for the common man. It seems like you will relate to it a lot. Psychopathology of Everyday Life, man. I mean, I would even give another read after I finish this book that I am reading, Freud Along the Ganges, uh, by this man only. He edited by Dr. Salman Akhtar. I finished that, and then I may start Freud.
This is what I was looking for all my life. So, and I learned about slips of tongue and so on and so forth. Another very important thing that Freud gave us and highlighted, it was present in literature, in Greek literature, in Persian literature, in Chinese literature, Roman literature, but not in a properly organized way, and that is the presence of unconscious mental life. That there is more to mental life than we can consciously account for. More things happen, more things are going on right this minute in our mind. That, I mean, like consciously, we wanted to remember that guy's name, but there was something out of our awareness that was insisting on forgetting that guy's name. You know, and what was that power and source? The part of the mind called unconscious, which again in metapsychology next session we'll talk in more detail. So the delineation of unconscious mental functioning, the psychopathology of everyday life, the dream psychology, how dreams are formed and how dreams can be interpreted, and
These
how
many
we can
people
learn
are studying
more
with
about the
us.
individual, about understanding of dreams, and also of transference, of how within the psychotherapeutic situation, the feelings that were originally directed at mother, father, real feelings or defenses against those feelings, at real mother and father or imagined and wished for mother and father, can get activated in the here and now, and how it is not possible to kill a ghost without calling a ghost.
विवेक
Oh,
आप
what
गए
the
नहीं?
hell?
सर वो
Uh,
Meaning the transference, that cure has to be through the work in the transference. These are, I think, their strengths. So there are weaknesses in Freud, there are strengths in Freud. But the four kinds of work, some weaknesses, some strengths. Finally, the fourth fact for today. First fact about Freud and psychoanalysis. Second about the weaknesses. Third about the strengths. Fourth, psychoanalysis is no longer the same as it was during Freud's days. Just the way an airplane is not the same as it was during Wright brothers' days, or a car is not the same as Henry Ford days, or telephone is not the same. Things evolve, things change, things remain the same, but things also change. Think about it. Where is that hand that you had when you were 3 years old? That hand is in your hand. Your hand was this big. Now your hand is this big. That hand has grown into it, just like a tree grows on itself. Same thing with psychoanalysis. A bunch has changed, and a bunch remains the same. A bunch has changed. The major changes that in 1900, 1920 psychoanalysis and 2020 psychoanalysis, 100 years, is one, that the focus on the body is less. That is one very important change. There's a more clear and specific focus on the mind. The mind is first and the body follows it. What says the body is first and mind follows it? That's one major change. Second major change is Freud, at least himself, Winnicott and Klein in England differently, but Freud himself was mostly interested in child's relationship with the father. While bit by bit, we became aware that it's actually the relationship with the mother that's more important. So the shift from paternal principle to maternal principle, that's another very important shift. Another important shift is that the development from A to B to C to D, 1-year-old child, 2-year-old child, 5-year-old child, 8-year-old, 10-year-old child, is no longer considered so linear and so much predictable and linear. A, B, C, D. Sometimes A happens, then C happens, then B happens. So that's another change. Another change is that the development is viewed not as something epigenetically unfolding within the body, mind, brain of the child, but in terms of relationships. How is one related to mommy? How is one related to mommy now? How is one is related to mommy now? How is one related to daddy as a baby? How is one related to daddy as 4 years old? How is one related to daddy as 10 years old? How is one related to daddy as 18 years old? So relationship is not only something that is coming from within, it's also played out within the relationship and with certain social tasks that have to be accomplished at each developmental stage. Yet another modification that has happened is that we have learned that
ये पॉइंट समझे आप? ये पॉइंट है कि डेवलपमेंट, पहली बात तो ये है कि डेवलपमेंट को आप सिर्फ फ्रॉम विद इन मत समझिए कि अभी चाइल्ड इतना था, अब ये बड़ा हुआ, धीरे धीरे उसका माइंड डेवलप कर रहा है, जस्ट लाइक यू नो a plant or something like this. You have to look at it externally, and you can only look at it externally. The relationship with people, how the child is related to the mother at 4, at 10, at 16, so on, right? So this is what he's talking about.
the development especially is variable in various countries and various cultures. And therefore, we have to keep in account and in mind different models of development, different intensities, different durations, different. I mean, for example, in early psychoanalysis, you could open a book from 1950, and you can find such a statement. There's too much skin-to-skin contact in child rearing in Japan or in India. Who decides what's too much? That statement itself is a biased statement, because that says that what Freud and his followers in Europe or later in the United States or England, they decided is the normal thing. And what is happening in India, China, Japan is abnormal thing. No, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. So there's much more what I have termed, this is my term, that what was psychoanalytic anthropology has now changed into anthropological psychoanalysis, where one model was taken and put on different people in a totalitarian way, theoretical totalitarianism. Now, more information is coming from outside. So we know in China, children's conflicts are different. In India, in Japan, and so on and so forth. Or there was you could find in even up to 60s, 70s, there's prolonged symbiosis between mother and child in India, China, and Japan. No, who says that's prolonged? Why don't we say that there's aborted symbiosis in West? You see, things are opening up now. Or, for example, even one time this was not in psychoanalysis, in general psychiatry. I was listening to a lecture and somebody said here in Philadelphia that some cases of reverse SAD, have been reported from southern parts of India, where people become happy in summer and happy in winter and sad in summer. I raised my hand. I said, excuse me, what gives you the right to call that reverse? How come this is not reverse? You see, these are biases that, regional, political, colonial biases, racist biases that seep into theory that we have to be try to break and rise above. So when I finished my analytic training, during which everybody treated me, I was at that time, I thought I was the only Indian properly trained psychoanalyst and undergoing psychoanalytic training in USA. That was my delusion. That was not true. I was actually number three. There were two other people before me, but they were more humble and modest than me, so they didn't go talking too much everywhere. So they were not, and they were not writers. So they were humble and lazy. I'm arrogant and hardworking. That's the only difference between a writer and non-writer. The writer is vain, says my ideas are important, and but works hard. The non-writer is modest and decent but lazy. So now they had not written anything, so I didn't know their existence. So I felt that I was the only Indian guy in the whole thing, and I felt lonely but also cute and special. And
I would rather be a arrogant writer than a humble non-writer. I, I don't care about humility. I don't care about modesty. I want to write. I want to, publish one day.
um, but when I finished, and they treated me as a white Jewish boy, and I let them treat me as a white Jewish boy, and things worked out very well. But after 10 years, I began to think, what has happened? And I edited a book on India called Freud Along the Ganges. Then I edited a book on Islamic world.
That's what I'm reading right now. I'm done with 8 chapters. I think there are 14 in that. I'll be finishing in within this month. I'll be finishing it. Then I'll move to some other psychopathology of everyday life.
Called Crescent in the Couch. Then I edited a book on China, Japan, and Korea called Freud in the Far East. Then I edited a book on New Zealand and Australia called Geography of Meanings. Then I edited a book on African Americans, then the African American experience. Then I edited a book on Hispanic Americans, and two books on animals, one book on physical objects. So I tried to, rather than leave psychoanalysis, I tried to bring what was not in psychoanalysis and put it inside. So these are the another thing that has changed is in psychoanalysis is that it was too focused on mother and father, and now we have some literature about siblings and the effect of brother and sister, having them and not having them. And having siblings is a pain in the ass, but on the other hand, not having siblings is also a pain in the ass. And between the two pain in the asses, I think having siblings is a better pain in the ass. Why? The question is why? Because the reason having siblings is better than not having siblings is because you can go to your brother or sister and say, Daddy is acting like an asshole. That's a great feeling. That's a great feeling. Because if you don't have a brother or sister, you're stuck with mommy and daddy. And they're sometimes very annoying and sometimes wrong and sometimes autocratic. And then you're stuck with that aggression and you're dependent on these two people and you have to swallow it and yet live with them. When you're brother and sister, you can share some nasty thoughts about mother and father.
Bitch
As
about.
well as there are certain skills that we learn from our brothers and sisters that we don't learn from father and mother. You know, that involves sex, masturbation. My sex education was from siblings, servants, and animals. Donkeys and dogs and such. That's where I got my sex education. There was no sex education in school. So siblings are good in that. So we learn things from siblings. It's good to have siblings.
Wasn't it a horrible time for you? It's the same in India in third tier cities and all that. You get it from now from internet also, but but mostly from these things only, these avenues only.
So sibling literature has emerged. That's new. That was not in the days of Freud. Some literature has emerged on the significance of grandparents. That is good. I just finished editing a book which has gone to press. It'll be out in February. And I'll make sure, Dr. Basu, you get a copy so you can put in PGI. The book is called Besides Family, in which we have chapters on nannies, and neighbors, and clergymen, and school teachers, and childhood friends, and professional mentors, and all these people who are not related related to us, but uh, but uh, but still are of formative influence. So the main and finally the big change that has happened is that psychoanalysts have started observing children. There's a whole field has opened up of infant psychiatry, infant psychoanalysis, mother-infant psychoanalysis, and infant observation. And I will, during the course of this course, I will tell you many interesting experiments that have been done and studied with mother and child, baby, and where we learn many things about child development. So child development, cultural relativism, inclusion of mother, not only of father, of other relatives, and even beyond relatives, diminution of emphasis on body. These are the changes that have taken place. So now It's 11 o'clock. We have another half an hour. I'm going to stop in 1 minute. 4 points I've made. One, psychoanalysis means two words, a body of theories and a specific form of psychotherapy. Psychoanalysis was founded by Freud. Freud's contributions are of four kinds: metapsychological, developmental, clinical, and cultural. Besides Freud, two names you must remember who are the great psychoanalysts: Melanie Klein and
and
Donald Winnicott. We
Winnicott.
will refer to them later. This is one piece. Second piece, the weaknesses of Freud are Eurocentrism, phallocentrism, cultural insensitivity towards the girl child, uh, and uh, and um, and too much focus on body and too much hydraulic energy models.
Right.
The strengths of Freud lie in his free mind, his courage to think about everybody, his pointing out the unconscious mental life, his highlighting psychopathology of everyday life, his work on dreams. These are the strengths. And the changes from early psychoanalysis to today's psychoanalysis is less body, more mind, primacy of mind rather than primacy of body, cultural corrections, feminist
Maternal.
corrections, and inclusion, expansion of the orbit of people who help create us from baby to an adult.
Right.
That I think is enough education for one day. Now is your chance to ask me questions. Please feel free. I'm thick-skinned. I'm thick-skinned, and I'm not, very easy, very difficult to answer. You can ask my secretary, who in Jefferson Hospital, I've been working in medical school 43 years. I've been really furious 5 times, which is not bad. Once in 8 years, not bad. Okay, so ask any question. Somebody asked, what is the optimal number of siblings to have? I'll answer it in a joking way, so don't get offended. You be thick-skinned also. It depends on how many breasts the mother has. If the mother has 10 breasts, it's good to have 5 siblings. You get the idea? Meaning, it depends on the economy of love and resources, internal psychological resources of attention, love, etc., in the family. There's no optimal number. It is, how much love can you give a child? I mean, if I had 13 children, I have two, but if I had 13, I think I'll forget their names sometimes. Are you Vinod or are you Rajesh? I think that's not good for a child, right? So it depends on how many breasts does the mother have. That's a joke, but you understand what I mean. Okay, ask questions.
It was interesting, Salman Sahib. It was
The examples are very particular. Vinod and Rajesh. Vinod Khanna, Rajesh Khanna is very Bollywood of him. The influence of being in a family full of filmy people. So,
interesting to note Shalini's response. I mean, Abhishek, who asked the question, if you can see on the chat box, he's one of our faculty members. So is Shalini. Shalini wrote, one is a lot. Being the younger one might be the merrier. And then she wrote, let us see what Professor S.K. Sir would say about this. My point is about the point S.K. and not S.A. So was that a Freudian mistake? Or would S.K.
Yeah, she's missing.
Yeah, Shalini.
Dr. Verma. She's missing Dr. S.K. Verma. It's okay to miss it. He was a nice guy.
Oh,
he's a nice guy.
No. She
has never met Dr. S.K. Verma, I guess. Yeah.
I thought it was more
precisely a problem with the psychoanalysis.
come on, this is not a Freudian slip. She got confused. She wanted to write Salman S.A. maybe, but S.K. is more common surname, right? That's what that's it. Don't make it big deal.
I guess there are too many things to interpret. Means at the end of the day, you don't know that what is correct. If we nowadays the science is moving towards empirical evidence-based science, then where is the empiricism in psychoanalysis?
It made me so happy that you asked this question, because I was expecting this dart to be thrown. I was expecting so good.
This hard sciences, pseudosciences problem, empiricism, falsifiability. It's interesting. Where empiricism and psychoanalysis? I wonder what he will give an answer to.
It's so good. If you're expecting a dart to be thrown, that the dart be thrown. Now so I told you I'm thick-skinned. Here is the answer. Where's the gentleman? I want him on the screen so that I can talk to him.
Abhishek, can you please?
I'm here. I'm very much here.
Yeah, okay, Swapnajit, you'll have to pin him for a while, if you can.
Okay, yeah. All right, no problem. No problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, here is the situation. Number one, when we say evidence-based, we act as if we know what the word evidence means. I don't think we do. What does the word evidence mean? Whose evidence? What sort of evidence? Let us suppose, here is a simple exercise. Let us suppose you and I, or me and Dr. Basu, are asked to write from 1 to 5 a liquor type item. I love my mother. And Dr. Basu circles 5 and I circle 5. Does that really mean that he loves his mother as much as I love my mother, or I love my mother as much as he does? And can this love be measured? I mean, really? What does that mean? What does that mean? That he circle 5 and I circle 5? Maybe I circle 3. Does that mean I love my mother less? I mean, what does this mean? Number one. So don't get too seduced by this kind of thing. Please, grow up. Don't get too seduced by these little things. Number one. Number two, read some poetry and listen to some poetry. I will read one share, which is the share from actually a film. But what the hell? One should get good things from wherever one gets. From the old Heer Ranjha with Rajkumar and Priya Rajvansh, in which when Ranjha sees Heer for the first time, and he is stunned by her beauty, and then she leaves, and what does he say? Milke तन्हाई का एहसास उसने दुगना कर दिया. मिलके, after meeting, he made me feel more lonely. मिलके तन्हाई का एहसास उसने दूना कर दिया. दिल किया आबाद कुछ ऐसे कि सूना कर दिया. Now you listen to this share and you say, wow, and your hands start trembling and your heart starts beating. Is this evidence? Is this evidence or what? You see, there's evidence in religion, there's evidence in poetry, there's evidence in love. You sit in a restaurant. We used to have a restaurant called Crash in when the Punjabi immigrants and exiles from Uganda came to Chandigarh, and they opened many interesting restaurants. There was one called Mombasa, one was called Crash Inn. You're sitting in Crash Inn and you're looking at her eyes, and she's looking in your eyes. There's evidence. So please understand, there's something called evidence-based medicine, and there's something called medicine-based evidence. So that's my answer. There are all kinds of evidences of love.
This is lovely. Evidence-based medicine, which is some hard medicine, which is allopathy, versus there is medicine-based evidence. I remember एक discussion हो रही थी with one of my friends, and we were talking about allopathy, homeopathy, and Ayurveda. So this can be a very good point in favor of Ayurveda, that it is a medicine-based evidence. Things that work are evidential, right? Uh, Something, how will it work if the quantifying parameters are fixed? You cannot judge it, right? It is similar to judging a fish by its ability to fly, right? It's a great point. It's a great point.
Love, evidences of poetry, evidences of religion. There are all sorts of evidences, and we don't know. We should not idealize some kind of evidence and think that that is really an evidence. I love my mother 5. I love my mother 5. Is it the same? Or I might write I love my mother 3, and I might love my mother more than you. And how do we even measure this? That your love for your mother is greater than my love for my mother. How? Like we call them every day? Is that the sign? I might hate her and call her every day. No. This is not for us.
So I think we'll continue this. We have a hand. There are lots of questions on the chat box, by the way.
They should.
But there is
be a dialogue. Yeah.
Amandeep has raised her hand for some time, so maybe we could hear her. Aman, would you like to? Yes, please.
Yes,
Amandeep.
sir. Good evening, sir. So I wanted to ask, like you mentioned, Freud being more Eurocentric and treating only white side, then that contributing some of the discrepancies which we are talking about today. So I just wanted to know, is there like basic psychopathology if we talk of diseases of psychiatric illnesses? Does that also varies across cultures?
Some, for example, let's take this example. How often should a grown-up person, man or woman, call their parents? Suppose you live in Chandigarh and your mother lives in Delhi. How often do you make a phone call? Now, how often, if in certain cultures you don't call your mother every day, or at least 3 times a week, or 2 times a week, people will think you're neglectful, you're become a bad daughter, you're not loving, etc. In other cultures, it's possible that they'll think if you call her 3 times, you're really very dependent person. What are you afraid of? She'll die? Where is this that fantasy coming from? You're really not well. You're not mature enough. So that the amount of dependence is something every society will draw 2 lines: sad, mad, and bad. This is only sad, this is mad, and this is bad. वो लाइन जो है सोसाइटी में मूव करती है डिफरेंट डिफरेंट सोसाइटीज। कितनी दारू पीना, अब दारू पीने के लिए चली जाइए मुल्कों में, कुछ मुल्कों में, ईरान, मैं तो ईरान गया हूँ पढ़ाने के लिए, सब छुप के दारू पीते, सब पीते, ऐसा कोई नहीं है कि वहां दारू नहीं पीते, लेकिन आप कह नहीं सकते कि आप दारू पीते। आप शराब का नाम लेंगे, आपको जेल में बंद कर, लेकिन घर में छुप के सब पीते। मैंने पूछा ईरान में, पाकिस्तान गया नहीं हूं मैं, लेकिन पाकिस्तानी दोस्तों से पूछा, और सऊदी भी गया नहीं हूं, सऊदी से भी पूछा, और जवाब तीनों का एक ही है। क्या? मैंने कहा मिलती कहां से तुम लोगों को ये? कहते ड्राइवर ब्रिंग्स इट, ड्राइवर ब्रिंग्स इट। क्या बात है, इस पे तो मूवी बननी चाहिए। इसकी डॉक्यूमेंट्री का कितना अच्छा नाम है, द ड्राइवर ब्रिंग्स इट। मतलब हमसे कोई मतलब नहीं, हमें सिर्फ पीने सकते हैं। सो एवरी सोसाइटी विल ड्रॉ लाइंस ऑफ, ये नॉर्मल सैडनेस है, नॉर्मल प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, सैड, मैड एंड बैड। दुनिया में 193 ऑफिशियल मुल्क हैं। अब से कोई 4 महीने पहले तक, जुलाई 1 से पहले तक, सऊदी अरेबिया वाज द ओनली कंट्री जहां औरत को गाड़ी चलाना अलाउड नहीं है। दैट्स ए क्राइम। 192 मुल्क में वो क्राइम नहीं है, ठीक है ना? तो these are, they decide what is mad, what is bad, what is sad. We decide what is mad, what is.
I have a question. And I don't know if I will ever get an answer, but I have this question. This distinction that, okay, there is something called metapsychological Freud, and it is universal. How good is this claim? ये claim सही है कि there is something in Freud that can be applied universally. How good is that claim? And on what basis have you decided कि हाँ ये जो चीज है मेटासाइकोलॉजिकल फ्रॉइड ये सब जगह सेम लगेगा? I don't get it. If you are saying कि developmental Freud, clinical Freud, cultural Freud, you know, they are very Eurocentric and all that, why not metapsychological Freud? Why even the basis of psychoanalysis, the fundamental core basis, cannot be particular to particular cultures? This universal claim, how universal is it? That is my question. I don't know how will it be answered, but yeah, this is a question I have. I can remain unsatisfied and will wait for my answer. Yeah.
Bad with sad. Cigarette pina. Ab cigarette pina by itself as a symptom, in my opinion, there's no doubt it is psychopathology. There's no doubt. लेकिन फिर पूरे आदमी को साइकोपैथोलॉजी नहीं बोलेंगे एक छोटे से सिम्टम की वजह से, वो तो पूरे ऑर्गेनिज्म को देख के बोलेंगे कि पैथोलॉजी है या नहीं। एक सिम्टम हुआ तो क्या हुआ, एक सिम्टम तो हर एक की हुआ है थोड़ा बहुत, जैसे ना टू हैव सम odd basophils what they have. So yes, to a certain extent, culture does play a role in defining. You know, देवी आ गई, अब देवी आ गई, ये नॉर्मल बात है या अब नॉर्मल बात है? फिर भगवान जानता है कौन डिफाइन कर रहा है, किसकी आंखों में, इज इन द आई ऑफ द बिहोल्डर। कुछ जगह पे ठीक है, कुछ जगह पे ठीक नहीं है।
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Okay, you can lower your hand. You know, there's a sign of moving. Yeah, otherwise it'll be confusing. I can see Dr. Lalit raising a hand. There are some very interesting questions, by the way.
I want to hear.
Yeah, it has been asked. Shubham Tiwari wants to know, sir, what made you choose psychoanalysis after reading Psychopathology of Everyday Life? Because you said that. So, looking back, what do you think might have?
That was a trigger, but I think the main reason was that that I'd grown up in a family which was mostly in journalism, politics, poetry, and movies. So that's what the most line, and in fact, of the 4 things, mostly movies and poetry. So as a result, storytelling, poetry, saying shairi in conversation was a normal thing. Most people become poets and writers because of trauma, and doctors out of mental health. I became doctor out of trauma, and poet and writer out of mental health, meaning healthy identification and healthy emulation of parents. My mother was a writer, my father was a writer, so my grandfather was a writer, my uncle was a writer, another uncle was a member of parliament, and so on and so forth. Grandfather was a writer. So writing books and writing poetry was a normal thing. a healthy family legacy. I had some trauma in childhood which turned me to medicine. So I went to medicine and I didn't know what the hell to do. I was in fourth year medical school, bored out of my mind. And I was getting good grades that I was able to, but that doesn't mean I was a good student. A good student means being interested in the subject. I wasn't interested in the subject. I was interested in being cool and getting good grades. That's not a good student. And then I ran into Dr. Wig. And what happened was, because I was a weird guy, so I never read in medical school library. I always insisted on reading in general university library. Even with anatomy, physiology, pharmacology books, I'll go read in general. And see, serendipity happens to those who, like, if you want God to drop a raindrop in your hand and you're traveling in a bus, you know what? You have to stick your hand outside the window. God is not going to cause rain in the bus. He's not stupid. He's not going to cause rain in the bus. You have to put your hand outside. So I was in that Aligarh Muslim University library, major library, full university library. I came out one day studying, and there was a sign saying Professor N. Wig of Chandigarh, MD, giving a talk on psychodynamics of Mirza Ghalib, the great Urdu poet. And it was like 20 minutes from then in the Urdu department. I was totally shocked. I went there. I fell in love with him. I wanted to be adopted by him right then. And I must have driven him insane by the amount of pestering and letters and flattery that I did for the next 2 years. I said, I want to come and study with you. He says, you finished medical school? I said, no, I'm in fourth year. He said, so then wait 2 years, then write to me. No, I kept writing to him no matter what. So the fact that serendipitous evening showed me that medicine and poetry can be brought together, which brought two parts of my own internal split, being a doctor and being a poet. And so to me, psychoanalysis is like medical poetry, poetic medicine.
Yeah, I haven't taken the name of your brother because I'm not sure if you'd like to go into that. So, but that's all in the
कोई बुरी बात नहीं है, राइट टू में कोई बुरी बात नहीं है, लेकिन उन्होंने भी क्या लिखा है, मेरे पास माँ है.
नहीं, आप राइटिंग की बात कर रहे थे, मैं सोचा कि
मैंने ये भी डायलॉग भूलिया मत कि मेरे पास माँ है.
Yeah, anyway, so no, I'm just selecting with the last about 10-12 minutes that we have, I'm selecting more of the junior residents questions. I do have questions from very good ones from Lalit and Devinder, but I thought that let the people, I mean, one of our youngest ones who has just joined our department has asked a very interesting question, whose name is iPad. No, so later he has corrected his name from iPad to Arun Prasant. So his name is Arun Prasant. Yeah. What are the feminist corrections in psychoanalysis, sir? I've heard of some names like Germaine Greer and Helen Sixtus, but what is their significance in psychoanalysis? I don't know if you can, take it up.
I'll answer. See, Freud he had no direct experience in child treatment. He had treated one boy who was phobic of horses, but even that boy, he had met only 15 minutes. He treated him through his father, who was an ophthalmologist and Freud's friend. So he will tell his father, so what did your son say? Why don't you tell him this? And blah, blah, blah. But he didn't really have a clear experience of children. He had children of his own. And there's one observation about his grandson, which he made was very interesting. But otherwise, he didn't have no child experience. So his ideas about child development was constructed retrospectively from his adult patients, which is like describing New Delhi by seeing pictures, as against living in New Delhi and such. So he was wrong in many ways, and especially he was wrong about the female development. So, for example, there's a paper called, which is historically significant, but factually completely incorrect, a paper called Some Psychical Consequences of Anatomical Differences Between Sexes, in which he says that when at 2, 2.5, or 3, a child discovers the genital differences, anatomical differences between the external genitalia of boys and girls, it has such and such effect on the human mind. Those speculations are completely incorrect. And the consequences that Freud describes of them are completely incorrect. They're not. Nobody worth his salt believes in them. So the corrections that have happened, for example, Freud at one place says that please don't start hating him because of this. Because everybody has, including me and including you, have said wrong things and thought wrong things and stupid things. So he was stupid in that. It's okay. He was not God. He was a doctor trying to figure some things out. Something he was wrong. So here he was wrong. So one of the things, for example, he says that women always have a weaker conscience than men. And his logic is because women do not have a penis, and a penis can be cut off, and because of that, a man always has more fear. And it is fear that turns people moral. Now, this is a lot of bullshit. This is frankly a lot of bullshit. The fact is, The issue is not whether women are more moral or men are more moral. If God asks me, I'll say women are more moral. But even that is not a correct answer. The correct answer is there's profound difference in the nature of women's morality and men's morality. And that has nothing to do with having a penis or not having a penis. That has to do with relationships, that has to do with mother, that has to do with maternal ideals, that has to do with maintaining.
This is also an example of how Freud is very body oriented, phallocentric. That everything is related to body. The behavior of mind is related to body. Everything is body. And anatomy is destiny. I think this point that there are different moralities and different kinds of moralities, and what will you call moral and immoral is very subjective and not very particular as we want to think it is, right?
Bonds, relationships, and so on and so forth. So that is one correction that has happened. That early psychoanalysis said women are less moral. Now we know women are differently moral than men are, and perhaps more moral, but certainly differently moral. That women's morality is more contextual, more relational. Men's morality is more letter bound. जैसे कि एक छोटा example, exaggerated and caricature कि your father is having a heart attack and you're driving him to the hospital. Can you go through red light or not? Can you park your car where it's written no parking? Men would have difficulty with that, because the law says don't go through red light or don't park. This is the chairman's parking place or dean's parking place. The woman would say, fuck this. My father is dying. I'm going to park the car here. More important is my father than the dean of the medical school. So the relational emphasis in morality versus the literal rule-bound emphasis in morality. That's one correction.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Another idea Freud had, which is now considered completely absurd, and that is that a girl's desire to have a baby is a kind of a displaced desire to still have a penis, have something bigger inside her, something. He was into penis. He made it as such a big thing. It's not such a big thing. And the girl's desire to have a baby arises in age 4 or 5. That's not true. We know the girl's desire to have a baby is evident by 12 months or so, 18 months at best. So he was very wrong about women's development, and those corrections have been made. And as a place, made only 2 significant development contributions to mankind: domestication of fire. Now, why does he say domestication of fire? Because he said the prehistoric man, when he saw fire, he peed on it and put it off. Because women cannot sit on the fire and pee, therefore they have to do something with it. See, again, this chronic preoccupation with body, penis, vagina, and such and such. So he's like trying to pull himself out from physical medicine and from Viennese bourgeois repression of sexuality. So becoming cocky and brave but in wrong directions.
Yeah, I think that has been a wonderful beginning, Dr.
Very, very interesting. To come out of the bourgeois repression of sexuality, the forms that Freud employed are often very misdirected, right? That's what he's saying. आजाद होने की जो ख्वाहिश थी वो इतनी ज्यादा थी कि ये नहीं देखा कि मतलब कितना फैक्चुअल कितना क्या है, बस ओपन sexuality, open expression of sexuality. If there are too much penises in Freud, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is sad. No, I should not say this. Yeah, Freudian literature. No, it doesn't make that. No, no, it's good. It's good. Come on, I can laugh. I'm 24-year-old guy who is very interested in psychoanalysis, but is also my cultural upbringings have been really messed up. So you know, come on, this is almost a miracle, dude. A guy sitting in Jharkhand has his bachelor's and master's in physics, and he is interested in philosophy, political science, psychoanalysis, learning psychiatry from a psychiatrist, for a psychotherapist, uh, who is sitting in US. First of all, it is a technological miracle. It is because we have this technology, and second, we have this curiosity. And now you can also learn about it. Go to PGI's main channel and watch all those lectures, or you can watch with me in 10 days, where I watch all those lectures, make notes, have some discussions with you. The lecture is almost at the end, and when it finishes, I'll switch off the video. Yeah, you can go.
Akhtar, I'm just conscious of the time. I mean, there are other questions, very good ones
Take
on the
one.
chat box, but
Can we take
but
one
but
more minute? We have 6 minutes.
well, yeah. I mean, one is by Navdeep, which I think you could probably write later on. It'll be an easier thing to do. He has written that, sir, I would like to know that should we read some book related to psychoanalysis to understand more in these, forthcoming lectures. I don't know yes or wrong, but I'll
Yeah,
leave the answer to you.
yeah. I mean, there are some things to read. The problem in psychoanalysis, mostly, the problem is that what is good is unreadable, and what is readable is not good. That is our problem. So some things, uh, and I also don't want to be recommending my stuff. That's not a good thing. So let me think. I will have plenty of time together, and
Yes, yes.
I will keep in mind to evolve some kind of a small, not formidable bibliography before we part in 10 sessions.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think, and there are good ones by our some of the faculty members, but I promise you, and I could see Ipsita's hand, which was raised for a while and now it has been lowered. That's because we will have plenty of time again to go through this. I think we have embarked on a terrific journey. And then you could
Yeah.
see, I think we can see that there is a kind of an ocean beckoning us. It's kind of is the unfurling. So let's embark on the journey. Let's not have too much of it on the very first day. वो थोड़ा ना जमा जमा के रखना होता है. There was a sharbat wala in our medical college Calcutta. He would give us only up to 2 glasses of sharbat. If you ask for the third one, even if you pay, he would not pay. The reason was that you would come back to him for the next time.
So nice. So nice.
So
So nice.
so with that, we will have plenty of time. We have embarked on a journey. I'm happy to see that the students are enjoying and they're having questions.
I have a sense that there's reasonable connection and reasonable enthusiasm, which is good. Okay.
Excellent. So with that, I think we can. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, Salman sir?
No, we'll see you next Tuesday at the same time.
27th, same time, and let's just have fun.
Yes. So, friends, this is what I was talking about, right? And yeah, this was the first lecture. We watched it all. You sat with me. If you're watching this till the end, I made notes, and so we started with first idea of the word psychoanalysis. Then we found Sigmund Freud. There are four kinds of Freud. There are weaknesses in Freud's work. There are strengths in Freud's work, and uh, the psychoanalysis difference from Freud's time and today's time. So overall, this is what we learned today, right? Some questions like where is empiricism in psychoanalysis and what are the feminist corrections in Freud? I made extensive notes of these and learned a lot. Yeah, so this was the first episode of Learn with me, Vibhat Kumar, and yeah, next 10 videos are on the line. Learn with me, and we are learning psychoanalysis by the great Dr. Salman Akhtar. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's solve this. The art of ending videos. Here it is. How to end it? Fuck. Should I end like this?